Hello and welcome to another episode of Celebrating Southbridge. I'm Ron Sanangelo, the Southbridge Town Manager, and first and foremost I want to thank you for tuning into this show. The whole point of this show is to keep you informed as to what is happening here in our town, particularly all the good things that are happening, but also to make sure the government is transparent so you have an understand, for instance, where all your tax dollars are going. Today I have a great guest. He's our Inspectional Services Director. He's also our public health agent. His name is Andy Pelletier. Andy, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, it's great to have you on because the citizens are always concerned about issues like public health and trash issues and landfill issues, and you're kind of the guy that's involved with a whole host of different issues. So I'm going to start off with a kind of an easy question, and I want you to understand exactly what does the Director of Inspectional Services do for the citizens of Southbridge?
And that's an easy question.
That's an easy question. There you go.
Pretty much the Board of Health and the building departments together are the go-to department. Most concerns, complaints, just wondering how they do things start with us. We oversee all of the food operations. We ensure health and safety through building codes, housing codes, sanitary codes. If you're having a problem with your apartment, you'd come to us. About 3 years ago, we took on the blight attack, which is basically getting our trash in order so that it's not ugly on the streets anymore, getting our buildings in order, and we've made great progress there. But I would say that the best way to describe inspectional services right now is we respond to your concerns.
So let's talk about the issue me and you have worked a lot on, the issue of blight. So many of you out there realize that Southbridge has some blight issues, some old multifamily houses, people that don't take care of the property the way they should be. And we created, working together, we created with a subcommittee a blight ordinance. And that ordinance is designed to increase penalties and fees on people who are letting their properties deteriorate. Because what the problem with that is, not only does the town look bad, but it lowers your homeowner's property values. God forbid you don't want a neighbor who is actually decreasing the property. So, Andy, let's talk about the blight issues first. And we'll talk about, I guess we could talk about first some of the things we've done to reduce the blight, and we could talk a little bit about the houses that we've taken down in order to improve the atmosphere and the look of the town of Southbridge. So let's start there. What does the blight ordinance do for your department?
What the blight ordinance essentially does is takes multiple ordinances that are kind of out there and puts them all in one place. There's some maintenance requirements in the building code, the housing code, trash codes. They're all over the place. What the blight ordinance did for the town is put them together and put a concise, specific penalty for violations of them. So using that ordinance, we've gotten a lot of landlords to step up and address blight in their own buildings. We've had landlords take down buildings for us on their dime, realizing that their buildings were contributing to the blight, and oftentimes their buildings are right next to one of their other buildings, and this one has taken down their own values. So we've gotten landlords to step up, take down some of the buildings using the blight. Also, we've used the blight bylaw to take down some buildings on the town's dime, that after we take them down, we lien the properties and get as much back for that cost that we put into it back into the taxpayers' hands.
So part of the reason for that is you have these 501c3 organizations, or these organizations that are essentially businesses that buy these multifamily businesses, and then they go out of business. You know, they milk the property for as much rent as they could possibly get. They let the building deteriorate, and then they kind of walk away. And under state or federal law, it's very difficult to go after those businesses. So the town has to get involved. And what we want to do is we want to keep the town looking good because we don't want to lower your property values and make it look terrible. So, Andy, I think we've taken down probably in the last 3 years, probably about 8 properties or so we've actually taken down and cleaned up those properties. Is that right?
Between what we've taken down and what we've convinced landlords to take down, I'm going to say it's quick math. I will tell you it's at least 8 and possibly 9 that I can think of. So, and that's in the last 3 years.
You know, one of the interesting things here, and Andy talked a little bit about it, I want to get into that because there may be some people out there that are sort of at the mercy of, I hate to say this and I hate to say it, but it's true, what I would call slum landlords. People who just don't care about the property and are kind of milking the tenant, doing anything they can to take advantage of the tenant. We've actually taken some of these people to court for not maintaining their property. So, Andy, tell us, I know you have a number of court cases, and we don't want to get into the specific cases, but when would you take somebody to court because of a blight issue?
The the biggest issue that we run into is these landlords who don't even live in the town, don't have their heart in the town, but they purchase because Southbridge has a low purchase price. So they purchase in the town, turn around, get decent rents, and refuse to put money back into the town. Their heart is not in Southbridge.
Right.
So what will happen is I will go in on a tenant complaint and find violations. Once I cite the landlord, he's given a specific time in which to fix those violations. And if he has not contacted me with a schedule to fix those violations or failed to fix those violations, I will take the next step, which is either fining them, which I tend not to do. I try not to write fines because fines are a penalty. They don't get things done. They just put a penalty on things. My preferred option would be to take them into the housing court and have the housing court order them to make the repairs that the Board of Health initially ordered.
So if you're a tenant out there and your landlord is not taking care of your property and let it deteriorate and you find a difficult situation, you can call the Town of Southbridge Department of Health and we would investigate that case and potentially we might take them to court. Now we're not going to act in your behalf or about rent or any of those kind of things. Really, we're trying to make sure that the property is safe for you, that it's maintained enough that you're not going to fall down the stairs because the stairs are bad or there's inspectional issues, maybe it's a fire code issue or a cleanliness issue, or there's a variety of things that we can go after, but we have to follow state laws. We can't simply go after a landlord because you guys are fighting. That's not the way it works. So, but we are a tool that you can use to make sure that your property is maintained in some reasonable order, right?
Correct. That the owners of properties, whether they be single-family owner-occupied or multifamily with an owner living 70 miles away, there is an expectation of minimum standard housing. And we will fight for whoever lives in that house to have minimum standard housing.
Now, for those of you out there that might have property that you're not maintaining, we are getting stronger. We are taking people to court. I would encourage you to do everything you can to fix up that property. We don't want to go to court. We don't want to have to do this, but we're going to do that, and we are going to put hard pressure on you if you're not taking care of your responsibility to your tenants or to all the people in Southbridge by letting your property run down. So, we encourage everyone that's watching the show to take sure that you maintain that property appropriately so that you don't hurt your neighbors. Because really what you do is you hurt your neighbors when you don't take care of your own property.
Ultimately, I'm going to say that working with my department is going to be more beneficial to the landlords than working to avoid making the repairs. Ultimately, financially, and to the benefit of the tenant and their rents. If a landlord will build the apartment to the quality of tenant he wants, then he's going to get that quality of tenant.
We have another gentleman that works in your office, Casey Burlingame, I think is the correct way to say his name. And Casey does building inspections to make sure that buildings are safe, right? So if you have a porch and the porch is crumbling and you might fall off and get killed on your porch, we inspect those porches and we can pressure landlords to take care of that. Tell me about the inspection component in terms of safety of the public and how you deal with those issues.
We have just added I think he's on his third month. He started in April, so he's on his fourth month. Gentleman whose sole job is to go out and do proactive inspections on the building side. So he looks at the structural issues, he looks at the common area safety issues, and he does this on an annual basis in all of the multifamilies and all of the places of assembly. And what we're hoping to gain by this is that loose handrail that ends up happening 3 years from now. If we can catch it as it's just starting to get loose, we can prevent it from becoming a safety hazard. So we've launched this program. It's a very successful program right now. We've got about 60% compliance with those that we've contacted. And we have a 5-year revolving plan where we hope to get into every multifamily building once every 5 years and try to curtail the detrimental conditions that will develop if we don't pay attention to them.
So part of the reason why this is new is the town in the past had no funding to do this, to really do the thorough inspection we need to do. We're working with something called a CDBG grant. They're helping us through a state grant to pay somebody to be able to do these inspections. So this is something we're doing to strengthen and make sure that these buildings are taken care of appropriately. And he's doing it full time. Plus Casey, as I said earlier, he also does inspections too, and he works with this gentleman to make sure that the buildings are safe. Casey's sort of the building inspector. If you bring forward a building plan to build something new, you want to build an addition to your house, Casey's going to review those actual building plans. Is that pretty much what Casey does?
Massachusetts adopted the international building codes, and there's a whole series of them probably, if you pile them on top of each other, a good 1.5 to 2 feet thick. It's all about how you have to nail two boards together, how you have to nail those stairs on, how you have to just everything building. And Casey is one of the best I've ever met, knowing those codes and enforcing those codes. It's definitely a strength of his. He also addresses zoning. We have a very comprehensive zoning, and we are currently rewriting that zoning, and Casey is an integral part of that. So he also, if you have a concern about your neighbor built something too close to the property, or it doesn't meet the zoning for some reason, keeping of livestock without the proper permits, that complaint would go to Casey, and through him, we would address those.
So truthfully, in some ways, we're looking for you to be our lookouts, right? You see these problems out throughout the town, maybe more so than us, because you're in that neighborhood every day. So if you see something that raises your concern, please contact the Southbridge Department of Public Health to let them know. Andy, do you know the phone number? What's the phone number people should reach out to?
508-764-4252.
Terrific. So please use that number if you want to call us to kind of give us information about problems you see so we can go after and do the enforcement of that. You know, Andy, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because people are always talking to me about this issue, is the issue of trash. Now, specifically, I want to talk about the curbside piece as it comes to just cleaning. I know that one of the big programs in the last couple of years you've instituted is the toter program. People used to, before, they used to put trash at the curb, no toter, just throw the bag out there, and the streets looked terrible with people's trash everywhere. Bags would open up, trash would be floating around, animals would get at it. Tell me about the toter program, what that is. I think it's pretty much instituted throughout town. Tell me how that's helping clean up and make Southbridge look nicer.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of our goals, about 2 to 3 years ago, we adopted the blight ordinance. And part of blight in the town of Southbridge is just the filth, the litter, the loose litter, the loose trash. So my assistant and I on the health side sat down and devised a program that we hoped would contain trash. And we launched that program last year, I believe. Got all of the toters out. So compared to 4 years ago, when you drove down the street and saw just mountains of trash against mountains of trash, as opposed to today when you see a single toter for trash and right next to it a single toter for recycling, no visible trash, it's all contained in toters. I say no visible trash, we're still working towards that goal. But just the visual impact of the town has so much improved that by doing that, it's affecting other areas, and people are saying, you know something, it looks good here. Now, maybe I'll also do this and clean my yard a little bit. And we are seeing the anti-blight being contagious from house to house. I can name several streets where, when I first came here, you look at it and you're like, oh my God, this needs help. And you look at it today and say, wow, nice.
You know, that's one of the things is about trying to improve Southbridge's image, making this appear to be, you know, a very respectable community with clean streets and the garbage not everywhere. And it's changing, and I don't know that everybody recognizes it, but that's what that toter program has helped to do. Just make the environment of Southbridge nicer, improving our reputation. So when people come in from out of town too, they see a much cleaner neighborhood. And again, you know what? I'm encouraging you to help us. If your property needs to be cleaned up, if you have old stuff in the yard, clean it up for us. It not only is it going to help improve the value of your property, but it's going to help improve the whole town. So it's really, really critical. So Andy, the curbside collection is nice now. I know that all the toters are lined up and are out there, and recycling is important. So you talked about there's a recycling toter as well. Tell us the type of items that should be in that recycling container.
Okay. Strangely enough, the market, for the first time since I've been in the career, and I've been in the career for 25 years, the first time quality of recycling outweighs quantity of recycling. Southbridge needs to work on improving what goes into the recycling and the cleanliness of what goes into the recycling. Your soiled paper plates and stuff like that can't go in. Your plastic bags cannot go in. What we are looking for is clean paper, clean cans, and clean bottles. Now, when I say clean cans, you don't have to run them through the dishwasher. Rinse them out a couple times and throw them in the recycling. But we don't want your shoes. We don't want your boots. The only plastics we want is the plastics with the triangle on the bottom with a number 1 through 7, excluding those plastic bags. Not that they can't be recycled, but that in the attempt to recycle them, they screw up the machines because a lot of recycling is automated.
Yeah, so, plastic bags you should not put in the recycling bins at all. They, like it says, when they go to the manufacturers or the places where they sort the materials, they cause havoc on the machines.
Yep.
So I want to tell you the people, because the people have to understand, in the old days or not long ago, we would take all these recyclables in the country, United States would send them over to China, and China would accept these recyclables, and they use them for their raw materials for things in China. China now doesn't need the raw materials it used to, so it no longer takes those recyclables. So let's assume it costs you about $55 for a ton of trash that's hauled away. You have to pay the company $55 to do that. Not long ago, to get rid of the same tonnage of recyclables, it might only cost you $15 or $20 a ton to get rid of that. So you don't make money on recyclables, but instead of paying $55 to throw that away, now it only charges you $15 or $20 to throw it away. But because of what China has done, now all of a sudden there's no market for recyclables. It could cost you more to get rid of recyclables than it can regular trash. Now why is that? Well, because we have a trash ban in Massachusetts where the regular recyclables are not allowed to go to the landfills, right? So if you can't take those recyclables and bring them to landfill and dumping in a landfill, because we're trying to keep recyclables out of a landfill, and there's nowhere to bring recyclables because you can't send them to China anymore, and there's no landfills to bring them to, all of a sudden it could cost you more to get rid of that same ton of recycling as it does the ton of trash. So recycling might not be a big savings in the future until they figure out how they're going to create new markets for those materials, right?
Correct, Ron. The cost of removing the impurities. What happened with China is they set a mandate. They went from 85% acceptance, 85% purity. They went to 99.5% purity. And they didn't step it up slowly. It was an instant thing. So most of the loads that we were sending to China are being rejected, and they become trash loads. So now there's more burden on the initial recycling facility to separate it because there's so much impurity coming in. So there's additional costs there. There was a huge glass plant in Franklin, Mass. that went out of business. They were taking most of the glass in Massachusetts. So there's no market there anymore. They became inundated with glass and they can't take anymore. So we're losing the markets and we're not replacing them fast enough. So the cost to get rid of recycling, because DEP still says we can't have these things in our trash. They got them separated. They want to keep them separated. The cost of getting rid of recycling is more than the cost of getting rid of trash nowadays.
Yeah. So recycling, it doesn't save you money, but now keep in mind it still protects the environment because you're not putting those tons of recyclables, you're not putting it into the trash. So it's still a positive in terms of environmentally. It's positive for the state and for the country, but financially it's no longer what it was in terms of the financial benefit of it, right?
We have limited areas, limited landfills anymore to put trash in, and if all of a sudden we say, well, it's cheaper to throw recycling away than it is to market it, now we're doubling and possibly tripling the rate that we're filling up our landfills. Right. So the value of the space in the landfill far outweighs the cost of the recycling. We need to keep that space until we figure out how to get rid of the rest of the waste that is dumped in there.
So let's turn to that issue. We have to be very careful about what we speak about next as it relates to curbside collection for our municipal solid waste because there's legal issues that are surrounding that right now. But I can give you the basics because it's public information. The town has a contract with what's called SDRP and Casella Waste Systems, where that contract basically says that they would have to pick up our curbside collection. They would have to pick up municipal solid waste essentially for free until the year 2027. That was part of the agreement of allowing them to control and operate the landfill, and they made a lot of money by bringing material into that landfill. They notified us that as of December, at the end of December when the landfill closed, they were no longer going to provide that free trash cleanup or pickup, and that, in our opinion, is against the contract. So the town has filed a lawsuit, and it's going to become a court case and a jury, probably a jury trial or a court case where we are going to be making the argument that they have a contract to 2027 and the town is expecting them to live up to that contract, and those organizations will be making other arguments saying for some reason that they don't have to live up to that contract. We feel good about it. I can't get into talk about the case and everything else. That's really going to be between the attorneys, and a judge will make that decision, but that part of the information is public record, so I can talk about that. Mm-hmm. But the people have to know, and I think it's been in the newspaper, so people understand that there is a threat to the curbside collection to 2027. We believe we're going to win that case, but we don't know for sure what a judge will do. But that's what's going on as it relates to the landfill lawsuit. Now, we do recognize, and I want to talk about the landfill is expected to close at the end of December 2018. What are some of the impacts as a result on your office as a result of the closure of that landfill?
Well, a significant number of my staff are partially or fully funded by that landfill. We are looking at the landfill spotter whose job goes away, so I guess the detriment isn't too bad to the office. However, to the gentleman who holds the job, that's going to have an impact on him because his job goes away. I have a landfill monitor who, her job essentially is to observe what goes on up there, report back to the board, and basically be the enforcement up there for the board. We expect that we will be able to keep her through closure because operation goes on until the thing is capped. Beyond that, part of my salary is paid by landfill, part of my admin salary is paid by landfill, and a huge part of my inspector's salary is paid by landfill. So we have to restructure the office, try to find alternative funding for those that doesn't adversely impact the taxpayer. The services that I get out of those positions that we want to keep are invaluable services to the town, and I've just got to get clever and find a way to keep those services without impacting the tax dollar.
Right. So obviously we're looking at all those issues as it relates to curbside collection, and as we know more as it goes with this lawsuit, we'll do everything we can to keep the public informed of what's going on. But again, it's a legal case, so we have to kind of play that a little close to the vest at this point. I do want to switch to general public health issues, though, and Andy and I were in a meeting today talking about the public health issue of substance abuse, particularly opioid deaths. And as I think everyone recognizes it, the United States and frankly around the world, but the United States in particular is facing a very difficult opioid crisis, and there's been a lot of overdoses all throughout the country as it relates to these substance abuse addictions, right? So we were talking with the town manager's substance abuse advisory board today, discussing what we could do to fight against opioids and to fight against drug addiction. Andy, tell us a little bit about some of the things that we're working on, the people need to know about some of the things we're working on to help educate the public about the dangers of substance abuse.
Well, education is key. I think in a situation of substance abuse is probably I'm not always the biggest proponent of education. I think regulation sometimes is a better way to go, but you can't regulate something that's already against the law. So in this case, I think raising knowledge of the concerns is the biggest step you can take to preventative. And we as a committee and as a town have to figure out a way that's effective in reaching out to the children who are just starting to try this stuff out and catch it before it becomes a concern. The parents of the children who, I'll tell you, the parents of the infant child who is sitting there thinking, I have to raise this child through this opioid epidemic without letting him get caught in it. The children who are into it already, who probably need to find a way to get out of it and don't really know where to go with that. There's just so many targets that need the education, and we have to figure out how to reach out and touch those targets, whether it be through media, social media. The Cops for Kids program is an amazing program. We're going to try to get some education into the schools, maybe bring some people who have actually suffered it themselves in to talk to the kids and say, hey, this is my story. Don't get caught up in it, Really, our goal now is just so that the children of today don't become statistics of tomorrow.
So one of the big things that we talk a lot about is if you never use drugs, you don't have to worry about the addiction. So it's really important to educate people not to start in the first place, because once people start and get involved in drugs and alcohol, it just builds on itself, and you see people's whole worlds destroyed, where they lose family, they lose all their assets, they're out in the streets, or they're getting sick, or they're in a hospital, almost dead. I mean, there's just so many negative consequences to getting involved in drugs and alcohol. So, first of all, we want to encourage everybody not to get involved in the first place. That's easiest, right? Then secondarily, if you are involved, get out and get help. There's treatment centers all over the place. Harrington Hospital has recovery services. Contact Harrington Hospital, and they can make services available that they can work with you to make sure you get treatment. The big issue though today is really how do we deal with children? How do we keep children from getting involved? Because they're young, they're encouraged by adults and drug dealers and other friends of theirs that want them to try stuff. We're working hard at trying to provide that education component to educate kids not to get involved. Now, Andy, one of the things we talked about today, most importantly, is parents have to be involved in that fight, right? So parents need to talk to their kids about this issue.
Parents,
how do we get parents to do more to fight this substance abuse issue?
Parents still count. The biggest influence in a child's life is their parent. They're going to be influenced by their peers, by the bully in school, but ultimately what they see their parent doing. And I'm not saying that you have to stop social drinking and stuff, but be aware of what you're doing because your child is looking at you and you're their hero. So whatever you're doing, that child is probably going to say, I can't wait till I can do that too.
You're absolutely right, Andy. We set examples, and I know that sometimes we forget about that, but we as adults set examples for our children. More importantly, and I think really what's important is you need to talk to your kids. I know it's difficult to sit down with our son and talk to him about things like drugs and alcohol, because the immediate response is, I don't do that, you don't need to tell me about that stuff. But it really is critical that you open up a communication of trust between a parent and child discussing these issues, because let me tell you, they are going to face them in the schools, they're going to face them in the community. You need to be able to tell them why it's wrong, what the negative consequences are of using this stuff. So I know it's hard. I understand it's difficult to have that conversation with your son or daughter, but you need to do it because their life might very well be on the line if you don't have that conversation. And there's all kinds of stuff on the website and through federal agencies that kind of help you with that. But please, do everything you can. Be engaged in your child's life in the schools. Make sure you know the counselors. Make sure that, if you need help, talk to our school counselors. They can inform you what to do. But you've got to engage. If you don't engage, the likelihood of them getting involved in this garbage and getting addicted is really a lot higher. So, we need your help, and your child needs your help, right?
And I will alert the public that though the numbers sometimes seem to get better, there's less death from opioids than there was yesterday, but there's better ways to save people who take the overdose. Since the introduction of Narcan, it kills me the number of cases, and I'm going to say this is going to sound harsh, the number of cases that we save by Narcan. And the reason it kills me is because it kills me that it got to that point. We've got to stop it from getting to that point. The overdoses are still happening. They're just not being as fatal because we're capable of saving. But one day that the officer is not going to show up at the Narcan. He's not going to have it with him.
So here's how that works, right? Somebody is really addicted to opioids. They take so much that they actually overdose their body. And it threatens, so it comes to be close to where they actually die. Our police and fire department have this drug called Narcan, and they basically use this drug to take away the symptoms of what's going on. It kind of reverses the high and the danger of the symptoms of it. Doesn't fix the problem, but it saves their lives, right? So let's say we had 10 people that are overdose. If they save 10 by using this Narcan, then it doesn't show up as an overdose, right? So it looks like, oh, well, we're not having as many overdoses. The public, we're improving, we're better. No, that's not necessarily true. This Narcan product is keeping people alive. Now, people come back sometimes 2, 3, maybe even 4 times, but we have to give them Narcan. And if we don't catch them in time, they die. I mean, it's that kind of a deal that who knows if you're actually going to give that Narcan in time to save that life. God, thanks to our police and firemen who do such an awesome job. But how sad it is if they get there a few minutes too late and the person dies because they couldn't administer the Narcan fast enough, right?
Simple statistics is going to say you go for it 4 times, 5 times, 6. At some point, you're going to lose. At some point, we're not going to get there in time.
It's funny. I hear people talk about drugs as being cool and all this stuff, right? I'm going to be blunt. My attitude towards illegal drugs, it's all about money. They're marketing this stuff out like you would market buying a new car or buying clothes. They're marketing out and they're making it sound sexy and it's great and you're going to have all these wonderful feelings. But really what they're doing, so let's really be clear what's going on here. They are taking your money and they don't care if you live or die or if it destroys your whole life. The drug dealers and the people that are marketing this crap, frankly, they don't care about you. All they care about is the money. So if you think that, they're selling you some scissors or something great, they don't care. And if they walk away from you and they're counting their cash and you're dying in the street, so be it from their point of view. So recognize what's going on here. They're not your friends. They're not people that you should like. These are people who don't care about you, who don't have any value on your life as long as they get some cash in their pocket. Is that accurate with this?
Just remember, when you're driving away in the ambulance, they're driving away in a Porsche.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? So we are working hard. One of the things, some of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to be sending out some direct mail pieces to parents in our middle school and high school to try to tell you a little bit about this problem, to get you engaged, to explain to you the dangers of drug and alcohol on your child. So during the school year, we're expecting that we're working with our middle school principal and high school principal to send out a good message to all of you parents, explaining about this problem and hoping to get you engaged, right? We're bringing in some top-notch speakers into our school system, and we're expecting it both in the middle and high school to bring in speakers to talk to the children. We are going to try to work through social media with the kids to try to improve that. Maybe do a video with the kids explaining this message. But everything we do, God, you know what? Without your help, it's not going to matter. I mean, it really, the biggest influence, no matter how much we do, is you. So you've got to be engaged in all this stuff. We can work that out. And thank God our town council actually gave us $25,000 to do all this mailing and stuff. But that's a drop in the bucket. You could have way more influence than 25 grand just by being part of this issue, right?
Yeah, one word from a parent is going to be worth more than any grant we can get.
Yep. So let's talk briefly just about a couple of other things that you guys do, right? So you do a cleanup day. Like we talked about the trash and all that stuff, right? But one of the important things of blight and cleanup is getting people engaged in just making the town look nicer. So I want you to talk about the cleanup day. I know you took off tons of bags and bags of trash. Tell us a little bit about that and how many people are engaged in that.
It's been a growing program since I took over 5 years ago. I believe we had over 100 participants this year. We picked up several hundred bags of trash from our roadsides, our parks, our rail trail or along the river. The number of tires that we pulled out of the railroad, the old railroad bed, we just and the businesses in the town just keep stepping up and helping us. Plaza Used Auto Parts took a bunch of tires for us that otherwise would have cost us pretty good money. The donations we get from Dunkin's, and I really shouldn't be naming the companies because I can't name all of them, and I'm doing an injustice to the ones that are helping us that I just can't come up with on this spot. But the outpouring from the town, the reason I took this job was because, I saw Southbridge had problems, but I also recognize Southbridge as a town that the people are contributing. Everything we do, the people step up and contribute. I've never been lacking for volunteers in any of the programs that I've done.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things we want to recognize, another way you can help us is by keeping your property clean. And now I'm talking about litter, right? I mean, everybody casually throws stuff out their car window or doesn't think about where they throw this little thing. But when we do a cleanup day, oh my God, you see it. You see, it's strange. You see a lot of cigarette butts that are just all over the road. You see, hate to say, you see whiskey, little alcohol bottles. I don't know how many people drink little alcohol bottles, but they're everywhere. And when you clean up, you realize that people that have a problem with alcohol are just tossing these bottles and hiding them, and they're all over the streets, right? You see that. Then you see the basic litter kind of stuff. People, they eat McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, and they just toss the bag out the window. I want to encourage you not to do that because all we're doing is making the town look terrible. So we need your help in doing that stuff. If you have somebody in your car who starts to do that, say, hey, wait, no, don't do that. Throw the trash in an appropriate place because, again, we want the town to look beautiful. And we know that you love the community as much as we do. So we want to encourage you to support that as well.
Yeah, Ron, it's I don't know what adjective I want to use here, but I can tell you regularly, nip bottles, #1 trash.
Yep.
Lottery tickets, #2 trash. Plastic bags, #3 trash. And coffee cup and drink containers, #4 trash.
Yeah, you lottery players, take the tickets and throw them in a trash can because you're right. I find those all over the streets
Or
and
do
stuff.
second chance. You can mail them back in and get a second chance for another $1 million.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that.
So again, I want to thank you all. I got to tell you, I want to thank all the citizens of Southbridge, the wonderful support they give me. Everywhere I get in town, they talk about the great job that my administration is doing. And really, that goes to the employees of Southbridge. We have the best group of employees. They're all working their tails off to make this town nicer. So I really want to thank my staff, but I want to thank you for supporting the activities of our town. Together, I mean, when I mean together, I mean all of the citizens, our town employees, the town council, all of the people working together can really make this town great. Again, thank you for watching the show. We're going to continue to do everything we can to keep you informed of important Southbridge issues. Thank you. And thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Ron. And thank you.
It was good.